And welcome to another episode of Jason and Bart Show. Sup, sir? How are you today?
I'm doing well. And yourself?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah,
Let's not talk about football because you're gonna get mad.
it was a proper beatdown, better team, and I'm a Giants fan, so was a surprisingly positive year for us. So
Yeah.
we'll sit back and let you guys deal with the 49ers this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, if you guys are noticing, we're actually recording this little, the podcast is going to come out in a few weeks. So I think we're going to be past the Super Bowl by the time this comes out. But
Probably
Jason and
true.
I,
That's right.
I'm an Eagles fan and Jason's a Giants fan, which is always tricky on the weekends when they play together for the two of
That's
us
right.
and our friendship.
That's right. Stretches it,
But you
but
know what?
we
It
make
stretches
it
it a
work.
little bit. That's okay. We make it work. It's okay. I mean, it's a thing. I'm true Philly fan of everything Philly, but and he's an old New Yorker.
He's a good sport. I'll say that he did come to a Ranger game with me when they were not playing the Flyers. So, but I
Yeah,
found
I
him a
did.
common enemy in the Devils that night, so that worked out. That worked out okay.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Flyers are doing terrible this year, so I don't care.
So listen, man, we're
Uh,
uh, we're 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 here to talk a little bit about reputation management today,
yeah,
and
apparently. And we're not talking
and
about
the
influencer reputations. We're talking company reputations.
Speaking of being an Eagles fan and a Philadelphia fan, let's talk about reputation
Oh,
management. Oh,
all right, all right.
um, No, but I've seen this come up a bit, and obviously, people are such a huge component of our companies, and require so much attention, and getting the people right inside your company is so important, and obviously part of the HR and hiring process as you're interviewing folks is as there should be. There are plenty of public spaces for people to talk about, their experiences at your company, and other areas, certainly on the internet, where your reputation can be good or bad depending on who's writing the comment, or what have you. And as we were thinking about this today, wanted to sort of get into, like, how much attention do we give to this? How much emotional energy do we give to it? How important is it truly, as part of the process, from the employer side? Because I think it is. I think it's very important from the employee side, as part of a person who's interviewing, to kind of due diligence on companies and sort of check those boxes. But yeah, I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that today, and just how seriously, with you guys, how seriously do you sort of pay attention to, or how much time do you spend paying attention to sort of what's out in the public versus you know versus maybe what's reality.
For us, it's a little different. We're smaller. When we hire, I care more about what's in the public, what we publish outside of, what's out there for what articles we write and stuff like that. I don't even
Mhm.
think we have Glassdoor stuff at all. I think, in my opinion, Glassdoor stuff is now a joke. It's more of it's just been like the people who write on it. It's just a weird gaming thing. It's like
Yeah.
people game it a lot, and like the companies try to rebuttal stuff, and it's like, how can you do a reputation when, like, sure, we've just seen a whole bunch of layoffs in tech, and some of them are badly done. Okay, but that's public. You know what I mean? That's out there, but that doesn't
Yeah.
mean, like, I don't know. I feel like the Glassdoor stuff has just been just overhyped and just a joke a lot of times. And maybe that's just because I'm looking at certain, industries. I mean, like, how do you do Glassdoor for a company like, I don't know, say J&J, right? Or like a ginormous company? Of course there's gonna be problems. It's human, right? But like, how is that how is that he's gonna, like, I don't know. I feel like if you're getting hired by a company, you're looking and doing your research and doing those kind of things. I think you got to go deep, and looking online. Sure, that's a first sort of go, but everybody's everybody's sort of career or everybody's kind of time at a company is going to be different.
Yeah. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think a lot of it is like, I think there are two, obviously, I think there are two sides to look at it. I think if you're on the employee side, the interviewee side, you know, to your point, I think it is important that you check the box and you do your due diligence and you just check it out, see what the general vibe is. I mean, web Glassdoor or whatever the online reputation is of the place, you know, if everything is tilted one way or the other, then you can probably say, well, maybe there's something going on here, right? This isn't completely subjective. Everybody has a pretty much the same experience, and that's what they're sort of sharing. But I do think I do think that there's an opportunity here in the hiring process to actually further vet your candidates based on this very topic. And what I mean by that is, like, I feel like there are, in professional services or client services, you know, conflict resolution and expectation alignment are like huge components of success. And I feel like conflict resolution and expectation alignment make up that client professional services that we provide. And part of that is understanding that there are three truths, right? We call through the three truths sort of theory, right? Like, there's version A over here, there's version B over here, and then there's probably the actual truth is probably somewhere in the middle of A and B. And this is especially true when you deal with human beings or two parties, right? And we see this a lot. So, you know, as you're going through the process, I certainly don't mind if people ask, you know, as they're going through, you know, oh, you know, I read this, you know, what is that? What's up with that or whatever? That's fine. But I also like people who ask the question because they already know that, like, Yelp reviews or Twitter or whatever, like, it's so subjective and so skewed and so slanted, and there's no context given for the environment in which that comment was given at a particular time.
Right.
Like, obviously, if you're someone who was just laid off from a job, whether it was done well or not, it never feels good to be let go, right? And if you're sort of immediately on Glassdoor telling everybody about your experience, and maybe it's not such a positive one, you know, that doesn't translate through to the person 6 months later who's applying to your company. They don't know anything about the context of how that comment was written. So what's interesting, like, we go through this, is like, do they recognize that these things are completely subjective and skewed a bit, and while there may be elements of truth in them, that they're not necessarily the whole truth? And that's where, when we get interview candidates, I like people who are like, hey, I saw this, you know, give me your give me your version of what the heck happened here, right? Because I think as the employer or the company, you know, we're going to have our own version of how everything, you know, shook out in a particular instance.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Glassdoor is like Yelp. Like, it's just is, right?
It's
Like
a
the
joke,
whole
right?
adage.
Yeah, I agree.
It's a joke, right? I always laugh at you know, first people come to New York and are like, oh, we want Chinese food. You know, with the number, like, everybody's like, oh, this has an A rating. I'm like, no, that's not gonna be great. It has a C rating. That's not gonna be great. Like, like Chinese food, like in New York, is very specific letter. It's B minus, and that's how you go with it. That is it. That's the little thing. Like, if there's a like, but that's true. You're laughing, but you're in New York. You know that. Like, it is. There's very specific things. So I think there's also, like, there's situational issues when it comes to those kind of reviews, right? Like, I don't know. A lot of times when you read them, you're like, somebody's really just pissed off now, and I'm just gonna write all this up. And then you have, you know, 10 reviews that are great. You know what I mean? Like, it's Yellow reviews are interesting too. I think it's the same thing. And then, like we said before, it's such a situational thing. People are just, they're people, so they're gonna, you know, especially when you're writing pissed off reviews. Like, it's like,
Well, yeah, and
it's
I think
very
that's the
hard.
thing too. You can get sucked into they say it reminds me a lot of Twitter, right? Like, you could literally just, like you were talking about earlier, people who spend time sort of rebutting the reviews they've been given or
Yep.
whatever. And to me, I think that's just such a waste of time. Like, I think it's important to be, I think, like with most things, I think it's important to be aware of what's out there. But
Yeah.
if what's out there wasn't pushed out there by you and people on your
Mm-hmm.
team, it's been pushed out there by people outside your team. I think spend some time monitoring it, but don't give it I wouldn't give it a whole lot of, like, and I wouldn't spend a whole lot of emotional energy on trying to manage, online reputation. Keep doing what you're doing. Keep pumping out your marketing. Keep living your values. Keep being
Mhm.
true to who you are. You know, and I think those things will shake out in the end.
Right. Right. No, absolutely. But it's also on this side of sort of hiring and stuff like that, it's a good thing to like I like when people ask those questions. I like going through interviews and people actually have more questions for the company than we have questions for
Yeah.
them, which is kind of always interesting. Um, we don't hire a lot. So for us it's like we're kind of particular about the what that comes like what our process is. And yeah, I mean, it was funny. Talk about a little hiring process. It was funny a year ago when all these people got hiring crazily, right? All of a sudden, everybody's like, "Well, I can't believe you guys do 3 interviews or something like that. You should just do one type of
Mhm.
thing." And I'm like, "Sure, but there's fits to these things, right? Like we're a small group. Right? It's got to fit in the job. It's got to fit in with the culture. It's got like I'm the last person that talks to a candidate. I by the time they got to me, like I already know we're gonna hire them, but it's just
Yeah.
a like last like, hey, what's up? It's like, hey, this is me and this is what we do. So it's a funny, but I like when people ask questions. And I've last person we hired, she asked questions at the end to me too, which was fantastic.
Yeah.
So
And I think it's a good to spend part of your interview process. Same here, right? By the time somebody gets to me, like they're qualified to do the job. They've been interviewed by other people here, right? But my job is to make sure, are they going to be a good fit,
right,
right? I think that's the
right,
thing. Like plenty of people have skills. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to fit well into a team, right?
yeah,
So that's the component that's really interesting. So I tend to ask questions that have nothing to do with skills, and I tend to ask questions that lead them to telling me stories, because I like people who can kind of narrate something for me, like create a story based on a question, which is really great. But also asking them sort of, what's important to them in a job, and what is it about us specifically. I mean, there's so many places to go work. You mentioned tech layoffs at the beginning of the call today. There's a lot of talent out there. I mean, if you're in the technology field and your company isn't a mega cap company going through massive rounds of layoff, but you're looking to top grade some talent, man, what a great time to upgrade, your rosters right now, with the amount of talent
yeah.
on
I
the
mean,
market.
it's so funny. People are like, all these mass layoffs. We're like, no, they're just right sizing it. We knew this was going to happen. They overhired like
They
crazy.
had bloat. Yeah, exactly.
They
It's
overhired
funny.
like
They're at,
insanely.
and not only did they like overhire like actual workers, they overhired their HR apparatus to hire all those workers. So
Right.
a lot of these layoffs are recruiters and HR people.
Yeah.
That's another thing. That's another area where, but
Yeah, I
they're not
don't.
slowing down in certain areas of spend. That's for sure.
Yeah, but like if let's go in this job market thing. Like I feel like if you look at everybody's like tech like lows, but look at all these other companies, they're not. You know what I mean? Like they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? I don't think there's
Well, I think
layoffs in
like,
other big companies.
I think tech makes up what, 2% of the labor market, something like that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
even if Amazon, all these companies lay these people off, which, when you add up, it'll be, 100 or a couple 100,000 people or whatever it is in the grand
mhm.
scheme of things from a percentage standpoint, even within their own companies, forget as a part of the overall labor market, but what about just a percentage of their actual employee base? I mean,
Yeah. I think
Amazon
the
says
four
they're going to lay off
majors.
15,000 people. It's like a 1%.
Yeah, I think four majors or 5 minutes, or you're only doing. They're only. It's only 250,000 people. And yeah, that's a lot of jobs and stuff like that. But I've talked to people who got laid off. Like I know people who got laid off from the big companies. They're like, yeah, we were so overworked, and that's a like a lot of them are like, this was a blessing. Suck
Yeah.
some of them how
Also, I
they
think a
did
lot.
it.
Yeah, and I think a lot of those people right now, I think the job market is such that if you lose your job at Amazon or Facebook or wherever, you're going to get another job pretty quick. Like
Yeah,
those people who are going out of the job market for the term are going to be back in the job market very soon, because there's plenty of private equity out there that's funding plenty of startups. There's plenty of tech. There's plenty of jobs. There's plenty of roles for these people.
and you're
Um,
gonna see the biggest jump in startups in about 6 months because
and
some
you
of
always
these
do,
people in
right?
teams. Yeah, because you're gonna see some of
Hope
these
so.
people that are in teams and they were together and they're like, all right, well, let's do something. Like we always wanted to do it better than now than never, right? We have severance for whatever months. Let's go do it. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like it's got the funny like a moment and happens every time, right? The funny cyclical tech companies lay off, all of a sudden you have this barrage of startups going.
Last thing I wanted to cover on the topic of reputation management was like, how do you handle clients versus like we've spent a lot of time today talking about like employees or people who work with us.
Employees. Yeah.
But certainly, what about managing reputations with clients? Not just during the sales process where somebody goes, "Oh, hey, I read this about you," but all like staying in communication with
I'm
them
gonna
about what they may be putting out there.
about us or about
Yeah,
just
yeah,
them? Oh, about us? I don't we've never had it happen. Um Privately, yeah, probably. But that's once again human, right? Sometimes you're just
sure.
not made to work with somebody. Um, and privately, yeah, probably. I just don't know about it. You know what I mean? Like publicly, no. We're
Yeah.
just it doesn't. Like we try to keep it as even and nice and however that works out to be. So that's been there. I don't know if you guys experience any public type of things, but
Well,
we have
I
never
think
done that.
yeah, I think one of the tricks with this topic is it's so easy to go negative, right? Like it's so easy to be like, oh, it's all about bad public reputation stuff, negative
Oh yeah,
reputation
no,
stuff.
right.
You know,
That's what I meant. Right. Our good positive, we kind of work with the clientele to be like, hey, can we do a, can we put stuff out there
right?
with you type things. But that's very specific to the contract we write with them. Like that's very specific to that. I'm just
And then what's
talking.
your
I guess I took it
yeah the
as what's out there.
yeah. And then what are your mechanics for like internally promoting sort of positive or like talent recruitment kind of stuff so that you not that you're managing your reputation, but you are sort of putting out the brand you want to put out into the world or what have you? Is that just straight marketing or is that something that's
Yeah, that's more straight marketing and putting out what we put out there. Like, that's about it. I would love to concentrate a lot more on recruiting things, and you always want to
right?
recruit. You're always gonna, kind of go from there. But
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, it's a little less. It's a little less intentional. It's just what we put out there. That's about it. Um, but it's not. It's never been that, and maybe that's maybe we should do more of that.
Yeah.
More
Yeah. Cool.
intentionality to what we do.
Ooh, that's my word. That's my word of 2023 so far. Intentional and intentionality. I've used it ad nauseam. Even
Intentionality.
I'm getting sick of using it, to be honest with you.
Well, you
Awesome,
haven't used
man.
it
Well,
with
this was
me, and somehow I said it.
no, and you beat me to it. I know. Awesome. Well, this was great. I'm glad we had a chance to talk about this topic. I think it's an important one. Obviously, for those of you who own your shops and your business, maintaining good and accurate reputation is
Yep.
hugely important. But at the same time, you can't spend all your energy and all your time managing the general public. Before we go, want to get to our picks of the week. I don't know what we're calling it. Every week we call it something different, but picks of the week this week.
What are
What you
you?
got for me?
I think it's where you're
I
obsessed
beat
with.
you. What's that?
Weirdly enough, these ball aluminum cups. I don't know if you guys can. Oh, there you go.
Which
That's
we're
better.
trying to. There we go.
There we go.
Okay.
They feel like the red cups, but they're infinitely recyclable. Um, so that's kind of cool. They actually, when you put cold stuff in it, it actually keeps cool. So water out of these. I don't know why, but literally was drinking and I was like, I'm obsessed by these. This is great. A
Yeah.
little more expensive, obviously, but you
Yeah.
can wash them
Where can
and
you find one?
just regular stores. They're just ball next to
Oh,
the
just
red
regular
solo
stores.
cups.
All right. I mean,
Yeah.
we had a chance there to maybe gain a sponsor. I was throwing in a bone there and nothing.
Oh,
But
ball aluminum cup.
there
Welcome
you
to
go.
ball aluminum cup.
Today's show is brought to you by, no, just kidding. Not brought to you
Today's
by.
show brought to you by Ball Aluminum Cups. Call us. Call us. We'll promote
Very
more of
cool.
these. They're probably also good for
Uh,
beer pong. So
Nice. For me, I podcasts and newsletter, daily newsletter. If you're into finances and investment stuff, called The Transcript. Definitely check it out. There's a daily newsletter and a weekly podcast. I like their podcasts because they're pretty short, somewhere between 10 to 15 minutes. So it's a nice bite-sized thing. And then lastly, I watched the second episode of Last of Us last night. Caught up on that show on HBO, which I cannot recommend enough because it's really good. It's really good. So
All right.
Other than that, that's it, man. So yeah. What else?
Jason,
That's it.
thank you. This was
Bart,
fun,
no,
as
thank
always.
you.
Our show comes out on Tuesdays. And as promised, eventually we'll have guests too, but it's coming.
Yep.
We're just trying to get our stuff together like we do.
Yeah, we'll be.
But
we'll
again,
be definitely
thank you so much for listening.
Sorry, I was just gonna say we'll definitely be out there promoting a bit more and look forward to some of our upcoming schedule.
Absolutely. Well, Jason, thank you so much again. I'll see you next week.
Well, Bart, no, thank you.
No, thank you.
Have a great week, everybody.
All right.